That rattled me, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Don't worry about
Can
it.
you
When
tell?
Ben Bankas is mayor, we're going to fix all those problems.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. So yeah, do you see that? I see my merch that I've got on here.
This is excellent merch. Yes. Vote
Yes.
Ben Bankas.
See,
Donald Trump is Jewish.
yes,
Love it.
exactly. I figured that'll get any Trumpers that we have in Canada. That'll get them on board, right?
Well, listen, we are under the impression that Donald Trump is a racist. So is Hillary. So is every other candidate. We literally every other candidate across every other political platform in every other political party is racist, except Ben Bankas. So
Hey,
listen, if you support any other politician in our, the only way you to redeem yourself is to vote Ben Bankas.
based on
And
based on the
either
liberal
Saskatchewan,
based on the liberal definition of what a racist is, I think what you're saying is 100% true.
yeah, this is. I mean, some people might remember Ben Bankas as the dissident comedian who through did comedy shows during COVID that were anti-lockdown, and you might think, yeah, this is really based, but he was fixed. He was sent to a re-education camp in northern Saskatchewan,
Yes. Yeah.
which
Oh,
is
we're
your
aware. We brought him
hometown.
over here. Yep.
Yeah, you brought him over here, and Dr. Teresa Tam and friends fixed Ben. So now he knows. He was given the literature: Ibrahim X. Kennedy, Robin DiAngelo, Justin Trudeau's philosophical musings, and he now realizes that every single politician is actually racist by what they're pitching. So only a Ben Bankas candidacy is progressive enough to fix the world,
Well, I have
starting
to
in.
say, I have to say, I completely agree. Thank you, Daniel's freaking running bits before I even do my intro. That was fucking awesome, man, hilarious. Okay, so I just want to do a little intro. I want to welcome everybody back for episode 59 of Canadian Talk. We have one of our favorite people from the show. I can't remember, man, if you were on episode 12 or what it was, but we have him back. So, what I can tell you is Daniel, I started to know Daniel about a few years ago, basically through the internet. And I saw that you were a guy who was out there putting your voice out there. You had conviction in the things you were saying. You just basically were putting your opinions out there uninterrupted, just like that's what you called your show at one point, right? And just I think that that's courageous. So that was why originally I admired you. So I just want to say thanks for coming on the show. And so yeah, welcome to the show. And yeah, to my audience, that's who he is. Just to remind you. Uh, and yeah, sorry, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me
I like
back.
to start with a sappy compliment, and then we move from there. Sometimes it's a little awkward. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because last time I was here, I mean, I did the show interrupted at Tag TV before the lockdowns, like when I was in studio, and then like, the world went crazy and broke. So then this
Yeah,
became regular internet rambling. I started the
yeah,
National Telegraph since then, and that's my like right wing commentator thing. But now I'm here to talk about my finding the light and becoming the most progressive campaign manager to
for
the
sure.
most progressive
Yeah.
candidate
So
in
so
all of the world.
so
So
do you consider yourself more of a comedian now, or more? And the pundit thing is kind of on pause.
well, I mean, so I met Ben doing comedy. So I was a comedian first. Ben and I both went to Queen's University together, and we were like doing comedy at Queen's. So that's how we met each other over 10 years ago now. And I went into before in 2015, I met a different comedian who was a political refugee from Iran, and we like realized, okay, the world's going to break apart. The government's crazy. If the government's so stupid and mismanaged, and society's like gone on the brink, that if someone sneezes, the entire system could collapse. So now we're at the point where someone sneezed 3 years ago and the entire system collapsed.
Yeah,
So I still do that. I still write for the National Telegraph. I still manage that. So I still do my right wing rabble rousing, and then I have, yes, I guess this comedic bit as the campaign manager for Ben Bankas.
yeah.
But it's we can do both in this world. So listen, the theory behind the Ben Bankas mayoral run is a primarily this is the funniest thing that anyone's ever done
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Canadian politics.
totally.
Like,
It's
I'm
finally
sorry,
somebody's doing a fake running, and it's you guys are doing. It's so funny. Sorry,
but it's
continue.
not fake. It's real. Like I have that.
Oh
We
no,
just
it's
got we
real.
just got 35. You need 25 signatures, and to hand it in. Like we last night we were at Yuck Yucks, did the event. We got like 35 signatures,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So I have the signatures in the other room, and the forms are signed. And April 3rd, we can hand them in. So
I have no doubt that comedians are very well suited to be politicians. I mean, look at what we see in Ukraine.
yeah,
What
Zelensky won on
Zelensky
it.
is a comedian,
Yeah, and
and he's Jewish.
there's a guy in Switzerland, a comedian can win. And listen, so here's the thing: people will be like, okay, one, this is funny. This is just really funny. If you watch the videos, you get it.
Yeah,
It's
I know. Yeah,
hilarious.
and to be everybody out there, go to basically Ben Bankas's Instagram or Daniel Bordman's Instagram. It's their full names on there. Daniel_Bordman, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really use my Instagram
Oh, fair enough.
because Instagram's not that political. Like, I use Instagram basically to connect with people who just like only use Instagram and message them. And then
Yeah.
so the videos are on Ben Bankas' Instagram, Ben Bankas' Twitter. You can go to my Twitter, I under my thing, and I retweet his videos. So like, if that's my plug, like that's where I'm more active. Because at Twitter, I can yell at like different politicians for being stupid.
Yep.
Whereas like Instagram, it's like posting pictures of my breakfast, which I
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. And
If anyone's wondering,
that's at
I'm
Ben
midweight
Bankas
today.
2, right? At Ben Bankas
At Ben
2,
Bankas, yeah,
because
his first one got
his first one got banned or whatever. Do you know
yeah, his
anything
first
about
one got
that?
banned.
Did it have to do with the Asian voices, or what did it?
I don't know. There was like it was one of those like we're just no warning, like you're gone.
I hate that with how I wish that when that happens and they see that he's a reputable guy, I wish that they would just reactivate his account. Or would it take one
But,
phone call to Instagram to get that to happen? With a
exactly,
fancy
but I think
businessman.
the second account is now bigger than the first one was.
Oh,
So
for sure,
moot
yeah,
point
for
at this
sure.
stage, right? So
But
at this stage,
can't maybe they could
you know,
collapse them together or do some sort of magic where
collapse them
it's
together. Like, but I mean, whatever. I mean, at this point, the best they just don't notice and don't notice
yeah,
that we've banned him before. Should we ban him again
fair
for
enough. Yeah,
doing
we are
for
invisible up here
example?
in Canada. Hey, we can kind of use it to our advantage as much as it is a downfall.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I mean, this is the thing. So yeah, I check out these videos. Okay, so they're really funny. You'll laugh.
yes.
And I would say the pitch is if you're in Toronto area, if you vote for Ben Bankas, it gets funnier, right? The more seriously you take this, the funnier it gets.
I might come
There's
rent a basement suite down there just so I can vote for Ben. How
you
many
should.
votes does it usually take to win those types of mayoral elections? Like, are you guys in the 100,000s or?
Well, it's going to be less in this election. So the thing is, our mayor resigned, John Tory resigned, and no one else really has much name recognition. So there's like the top two are Mark Saunders and Olivia Chow. Olivia Chow is like Jack Layton's ex-wife, a career communist, a horribly bitter woman by anyone who's ever come in contact with her. Career politician, commie nonsense. She's loved by some like hardcore old school communist types and like union, like the people, whatever, but hated by literally everyone else in the city for being like, anti-business and just insanely corrupt over the
You know
years.
what I don't like about the left versus the right? If I could just interject for one moment.
Yeah.
I like that on the right, it's consistent across the whole way. The message is, you work for yourself. You are an individual. Whereas the message on the left is always kind of like fake. It's almost like scaled where they're selling, they don't realize that they're what they're buying, because there's people that think they're left wing, but they don't realize what communism is. They don't realize that those ideologies, when taken to their extremes, kind of result in that every time. And it's not
Yeah, I mean,
whereas the extreme on the right is good. Like when you're a totally autonomous individual, it's not bad. It's not harming anyone else. Maybe it's harming yourself because maybe it's narcissism. But like,
yeah, maybe, yeah. If you go on a libertarian scale, like I mean, there's different, like the left right is like extreme on the right on other metrics, right? You get to like hyper fascism, right? Extreme.
oh, in
So
terms of
people,
a government system, yes. But I
right,
guess
government system.
I'm talking about it
But
in a
if you're talking in
psychology.
terms of, right? If you're just talking in terms of like individualism versus collectivism,
Yes,
right? The radical individualism is a lot safer, right? Much less likely to lead to the Khmer Rouge than the collectivists,
for sure,
right?
for sure.
So,
Yes,
and I
that's a
think
smart way of saying what I was trying to say. Thank you.
yeah.
I think I was talking more about psychology, but yeah, but I also
and
meant,
I think you're onto something here. The way I'd say it is, and what you see with all these crazy leftists in Toronto, especially, and why we need to parody them and make fun of them and really hurt their feelings,
okay,
is these people are utopian, sort of social constructivists, right?
absolutely.
So I want to get into the point of social constructivism a little bit because it's what's so damaging, I think, to a lot of Western politics here, and we see it's like the theory that if we just had the right ideas, right? This is the like upper middle class leftism. Like it doesn't need to be even communism, but it's sort of like, oh, if we just implied the right ideas, like so we just had these stabbings on the subways where criminals commit like 80,000 violent crimes. They write a manifesto that I'm going to get out and I want to kill more people, and then unless they're Tamara Lich, they're thrown back into society right away, like, catch and release.
Yep.
Right? This is the thing. Like,
Yep.
ooh, we got them. Out you go. Right into the
Exactly.
thing.
Well, it's just
Bam,
before I forget
back on
too.
the street.
Yeah, that's like the Jordan Peterson thing where he critiques it and he says that basically it's like radical narcissism where they believe that if I was in charge of the communism, then
Exactly.
it would turn into the utopia I was promised.
Exactly.
That's the
So, but
Peterson quote.
yeah, you're right. It is a term. It's a mixture of it's like narcissism and sort of cultural masochism
Yeah,
guised as compassion.
yeah,
Is this so the theory of like so these people just stabbed a 16-year-old kid and everyone's talking on all these things about like, well, I will invest more in community health and mental health. Like the real thing is like this, and like the thought of like, oh, I will just be so compassionate and I will be like, if I am mayor, if Josh Matlow, this like progressive city council lunatic, is mayor, he's going to sit down and talk to everyone with mental illness and fix all their problems because he's so compassionate and he'll fix this. And it's like, no, like my best friend has schizophrenia and like has gone through psychosis, just went through a thing, and like I understand it's hard, but so I'm not like saying no mental health care, but some people actually just commit violent crimes and need to be institutionalized.
yes,
And like my friend hasn't committed violent crimes, but sometimes like he just recently had a bad break and he needed to be institutionalized and go to like the hospital to get mentally better. Like you don't just throw him back on the street, right? But this like mental health stuff is like sort of like, well,
it's
we'll
crazy. I've been around a
just
person that has schizophrenia before as well, and it is kind of crazy how you can still kind of see the person in there, but then
yeah,
they have this thing that clouds them. They have these voices. It's really wild. It was like I also have this other friend, Jonathan, who's a meth head, and so I mean, no, we're not friends. We're not friends. But I actually did like I recall one time we did a podcast like right after he relapsed, and I've never released it because it's way too crazy. But actually, I think you can find it somewhere deep in the website, but it's not on YouTube or anything. And yeah, it's just weird to see that people are even when they're in that deep in in the throes of addiction or whatever it may be, you can still see them in there, and
yeah,
it's really sad. Sorry, continue with your
and
mental
like
health.
there's the things of like people with mental health issues are actually less likely to commit violent crime than the general population, more likely to be the victim. And also like, when a terrorist like kills a bunch of people and then we found out he also had a mental health condition, it's like it's not really mental health. Like yes, maybe suffering some mental health things made him more likely to be radicalized by either white nationalists, ISIS, whatever thing is, but it's like the problem is also like these like we someone say, oh, mental health. Like had I been in charge, we all would have been nice and this wouldn't have happened. It's like, well, no, there's actual
It's so
other
delusional.
issues behind this violence, and sometimes people show like violent ideologies, right, and then need to be institutionalized because of it. And right, so this is the stuff in Toronto that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Where we just lost the plot here. And like the conservative so-called frontrunner, Mark Saunders, let me get into this guy.
Okay.
He was the former police chief in Toronto,
Okay.
right? And he's a black former police chief. And we thought that would protect him from like, he can't call him racist, but yeah, the hyper progressives called him racist. And he was police chief under John Tory, where this violent crime skyrocketed. He was there. He oversaw the depolicing attitude where, the real problem is racism. Racism causes crime. Cops are racist. Therefore, more cops equals more crime. So let's do less cops. Oh, crime went up because all of a sudden criminals know that there's no cops on the streets. And if they get caught committing crimes, they get back out within 15 minutes. So, oh, look, they're committing more crimes because certain men with antisocial patterns of behavior will see, oh, there's no consequences to actions X, Y, and Z. I'm more likely to do them.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not because they're black or they're white or they're brown. It's because, yeah, you could say there's socioeconomic pressures in certain situations, but there's also like gangs have popped up somewhere. And if you're not like hard on them, right, they go more like there's real issues. And
It's everything all at once is what it is, right?
yeah, and it's like,
And you can't, and no person should feel that they can just
yeah, and
handle
like,
that.
and this is what I like about this campaign. So we're not saying we're going to fix all your problems. If you break down like what we're saying ridiculous things, But then, like, if you like listen to like Ben has a podcast, and if you listen to this podcast, like
Yes,
after the
the
first
Ben Bankas
10
show,
minutes,
great podcast.
yeah, we're like
Episode
this.
episode 16, or which episode is he on? And it comes out on which day of the week?
It comes out when he after he there's no set schedule release. It's
Oh,
Ben
okay.
Bankas' YouTube.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
yeah, it's
Yeah, you can find that on all platforms or just on any podcatcher, really, the Ben
yeah,
Bankas show.
podcast thing. Yeah, I mean, so the thing is, like, our political philosophy, if you pick it in, is like, we're not going to fix all your problems. We can't. Like, we can make this a bit better if you vote for us, right? Because
Mhm.
we shift into sort of like, we're not going to embrace fantastical thinking, right? But you know, by fighting woke nonsense at City Hall, like, you can't bully us and call us racist and then say, oh, if Christy Wong Tam, the most insane woke counselor in the city, for reference to people in Saskatchewan, right? If Christy Wong Tam, the most insane, says Ben and Daniel are racist because the guy who just, with the teardrop tattoo, who just shot a baby in the face, is going to jail for more than 15 minutes, like, okay, like, she can,
Mhm.
like, she's, no matter what we do, they're gonna freak out over us.
Yeah.
So we don't care. Like,
Yeah.
criminals, like, there's gonna be pressure from the mayor's office to say, when people commit violent crimes, they go to jail, and if police arrest criminals, like, we're not gonna ruin their lives, right? We'll intercede a bit, and this doesn't fix everything. It doesn't make the gang problem go away. There will always be evil men and women that, no matter what, some people, like some men, women have antisocial disposition and get off by trying to break the system or seeing they can get away with illegal things. Like, right, we're in a city of 3 million people plus, right? By us being there, we're not going to make everyone good with a better mental health plan, right? The social constructivists. If society was just structured the right way, everyone would be perfect. No. Like, we understand, no matter what we do, there's going to be a sociopathic man out there who's gonna find a weapon, and he's gonna try and stick up an old lady because he gets off on violence.
For sure, for
Our
sure.
thing is,
And if I could just interject for a second, it's almost like it's like this. It's like a delusion. Again, I come back to the delusion, or where people think that they are like, oh my god, I had it and then I lost my train of thought. Shit. Sorry. Continue what you were saying, and it'll come back to
yeah,
it.
okay. So let's just like outline the behind the scenes, like what the actual pitch is. So you see, we're making fun of all the other platforms, right? We're the most progressive candidate. Like, everyone else claims that they fight transphobia and homophobia, but is anyone else promising to make a TTC train that's only for trans? Is anyone else promising trans trains? No, right?
No.
So they're unsafe, right?
And that's a lot of money.
Every
You
trans
could build a whole new train system that's
right.
building
We're
the
currently
economy.
going through a trans genocide. We're going through a trans genocide, and none of the other candidates are proposing a train only for trans people.
Yeah,
no one
they
else
call
says
themselves
trans.
progressives, but like everyone should be gender neutral, and we
Everyone-
need to
exactly.
get there as quickly as possible.
Right. So okay. So if you're a real progressive, you have to vote for Ben Bankas, or else
Of
the
course.
world collapses.
Yeah.
But
Or else
like,
you're
so
racist.
let's talk about the elephant in the room of, like, Chris Sky. And I've heard Chris Sky's platform, and I heard him talk on Twitter Spaces. I've been with him. And listen, is Chris Sky right about lockdowns being bad? Yeah, sure. But Chris Sky is the type of politician that I hate, in like Daniel's terms. And it's like not a personal thing, but he's campaigning, I'm going to save the world. I'm going to save you. I'm going to fight corruption. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to fix that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. And I heard him go off on, like, I'm going to create a system in which everyone in Toronto is going to vote on something, and everything's going to be super public. And if you want something done at City Hall, there'll be a website where you can go and you can click and you can vote. It's like, 1, how much is this going to cost? 2, like, the administrative delay. 3, how easy is this going to be to infiltrate? Like, can the Chinese just create a bot army to vote on a thing? Like what? This is such an insane idea, right? That Chris Guy's saying, like, I'm going to fix you this, and this. Only I can fight corruption at this. It's like, there's a certain amount of entropy that, like,
yeah, it's like the movement now in politics is kind of more for moderate promises, so you don't have to have too many lies. Like, I guess that's kind of what Pierre Poilievre does a little bit, right? He's attacking it purely at the home level, where he's like, homes should be affordable. Homes should be affordable. It's a little bit reductionist for the real estate thing,
but like, so the Ben Bankas pitch, if you break it down, is like, 1, you're saying F you to the establishment, right? You realize that all these other idiots are gone, but it's like, fundamentally you believe in yourself, right? Our thing is like Rob Ford is the greatest mayor in Toronto's modern history. Okay, in my lifetime, Rob Ford's the best mayor. This isn't a joke. I actually used to do this as a joke, like when I was doing
No, I
comedy.
get
Rob Ford
it.
was mayor.
I
I
think a
would try to
mayor.
go.
I think a mayor should be a man of the people. Listen,
Yeah,
all this joking, this all works together. There's no, we're getting caught in between the hyperbolic and the reality here, but this is the way it should be. A mayor
no,
should
no.
be a man of the
I'm
people.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm gonna cut you off.
Go
We're
ahead.
caught right in reality right now. Rob Ford was the greatest mayor,
Yep.
and I would even go and say it like he's the greatest mayor. What did he do? He got drunk like nearly every night, smoked crack once, tried to kick a football and fell down. But he left the city with $1 billion surplus because he wasn't building silly bridges to nowhere and wasting everyone's money on nonsense,
Mm-hmm.
right? And no bike lanes for like the slow down the bike lanes. They don't increase biking. They make pollution worse because they make traffic worse. So
Would you agree with this? Would you agree that
just give me 1 second to finish my pitch
Okay.
of being Ben Bankas.
Yep.
Rob Ford, like we believe in the Rob Ford philosophy of like we're just going to get out of your way. Everyone in Toronto's fine. Like Toronto's full of smart, kind people. Yes, some of them are a bit wacky, but we could all get along. We just don't need to listen to some like insane yuppies who want to tear down all the highways. That's literally a Toronto platform. It's just like get rid of all the roads. Which will be we're going to go like our platform is actually no, get rid of all the roads. Like just they're all going to be gone, right? We'll take that. But
well, traveling is it's like
it's racist anyway.
it's
Bad for the
racist.
environment,
Yeah, it's
right?
bad for the
We don't
environment.
believe in 15-minute cities, right? That's not where we're going. We think Toronto's great. We're going to do a 12-minute city, so we're going to do 12-minute cities.
It's exercising your privilege, any form of travel, and it needs to be stopped.
Exactly, you get it.
Yeah.
But underlying this is like if we just have a mayor who's a comedian, like Ben's still going to do comedy as mayor. He's going to go out at night and be ridiculous, right? And during the day, he'll sign the requisite paperwork. The city will keep running and doing the things. We're not going to have crazy bridges to nowhere. I'll find a random tax cut like Rob Ford did, free municipal tax cut. We'll do that. And then we'll just bully city council as city council calls us racist. Like that's going to be
you fight
that's going
fire
to be
with
it.
fire.
Yeah, and there's going to be no ridiculous bridges to nowhere, no stupid bike lanes that bikers don't even use, and the media will be mad at us, and city council will be mad at us, and none of this will affect your life.
Nope.
And we're not going to save the world, but we're just gonna not spend trillions of dollars doing nothing in the city.
Trillions of dollars.
And
Absolutely.
Right, and
Got my vote.
And yeah, and like the school curriculums and whatever won't be like everyone has to be trans. Right, it will be like math. We're gonna like we literally have a teacher in Canada trying a decorated teacher trying to push the 2 + 2 = 5 stuff. 2 + 2 = 4, right? In a Ben thing. So this is general pitch is it's going to be Rob Ford 2.0. Okay,
Gotcha.
The media is going to go crazy. Ben's going to be caught in doing drugs at night at a comedy show. Someone's going to see him be drunk and then like smoke a joint and then like do something silly, but. Hey,
then he'll go up in the polls.
What do you think you're voting for anyway?
Yep.
But this is what he's going to do at night. He's going to go out and he's going to go do comedy, and maybe he'll go and do an American tour. As like the mayor of Toronto will be in Chicago this weekend, being ridiculous, and you'll be like, oh my god, it's unprofessional. But you know what? The city will save $1 billion.
Exactly.
So,
that's $1 billion saved. We got to pay for those Ukrainians somehow. We keep sending them all this money, and we're giving money back to the Native Americans too. We need to make this money somehow.
Do you see Ben's thing on how we're going to fix colonialism?
Oh my god, that was so funny. Yeah,
if people don't know, you can
say it.
I'll say it is our plan is we're going to fix colonialism.
Yep.
By going to all the sites of the dead Native children, extracting their DNA and pairing with Elon Musk to bring them all back to life.
Bring them
We're
back.
just going to bring all the Native people back to life.
Yep.
And
the only real way. You have to you have to pay back the zombies. Yep.
Yeah, and we're just going to bring all of them back to life, and boom. And
that might be a bit of a discount. Like, and then we'll take the 2.9 billion back, and we'll just divide it between the ones that we're able to bring back that we can verify. Require the reparations.
Yeah, whatever. And they got to live in a hotel in Niagara Falls for 8 years, like the current migrants are. So that's
a pretty nice hotel.
Yeah, take everything that the left proposes to its most logical endpoint. Like we can't have we can't have proper reconciliation until like these children are back in our lives. Like, okay, you really want to bring back the dead is the only way to solve this? Fine, we'll
I
bring back the
think
dead. That's all.
I think the utopian view on the left is so different from the one on the right, but I feel like it really resembles like an anthill. Like that is like the ultimate leftist utopia. Is a lot like an anthill. Just everybody's the same, doing the same things, just super simple.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a social constructivist
Yeah,
utopian. It's like
yeah.
if we had the right
Live in
ideas,
holes in the
right,
dirt.
right. But this is the danger of it. Is like if you truly believe this, and if we truly have the right ideas, right, then everything will be perfect. The problem is people like me and you and people listening who have differing ideas, who have different philosophies, and the social constructivist outlook, especially in a utopian context, makes you look at people who dissent and say, oh, the reason why we don't have utopia, the reason why crimes are being committed, the reason why these bad things are happening, well, is because of these political dissidents, and they're not embracing the system,
Yeah, they
right?
don't
And
have any naturalism in their body. They don't accept that. I know I was going to say this earlier and then I forgot it. It's that divinity thing where they don't think that humans are even animals, and it's linked with all of that I think cognitive dissonance that leads to that. And don't do you agree? Sorry, I was hoping you'd have something to
I
say
mean,
about that.
they don't believe or they don't believe humans are better than animals, or actually animals. Like these.
Because they think that humans aren't animals, they think that we can be governed into a utopia. But
Okay, yeah, so I
well,
agree with this. Yeah, I mean,
yes,
I would. There's two things here, which I mean, as a not religious person, I actually don't mind using religious language to describe this.
good.
But you're at one from the evolutionary biology thing with the radical left. So I have always been pushed back against people who are like anti-evolution wackos, like small, like what is it, like short Earth creationists, or short, like people believe the Earth is 6,000 years old. There's no evolutionary history to human beings. We were kind of created like this. We don't have vestigial traits, and human nature doesn't come from a baser, more animal instinct. I think this is a naive point of view, right? And hyper, super crazy religious people who, and there's some religious people who are deeply religious, but say evolution, was the tool in which God used to create man, and there was a divine spark that pushed humans in a certain way. Fine, like that's not a crazy belief,
Yeah,
right? But
what's that? That's
like,
called intelligent design, correct?
intelligent design, right? The intelligent design, like it's compatible. Like I don't think it, like I'm
Ben,
there's
there
no
was a guy named Ben who did a documentary on that too. Ben Stein.
Ben Stein.
Ben Stein.
Yeah. So let's say that that's not intelligent design. We can argue over that, but that's not a crazy belief, and that's something you come over and have a drink at my place, and we can talk about whatever. But
Yeah.
the sort of evolution denying of like, no, there's no link between the greater apes. Like, I'm sorry, we can track these things, but then you have these radical leftists who, like I said, the trans thing, where we have to, oh, there's more than two genders, and like can't understand that men and women are different. It's like,
Yeah.
is the most basic tenet of biology and evolutionary biology, that humans are, like
It's almost like it's a motivation problem. It's like people on the right understand that you need motivation to be an individual. But then people on the left don't want to be an individual. They want this collectivism. So it's like we realize that motivation is like a resource and they don't. And gender
so
provides a lot
yeah.
of motivation, right?
The way I describe it scientifically is the left, the modern radical left, let's say, believes, or like you could say the trans rights activist version of the left, believes that evolution happened to human beings only from the neck down. Only from the
Yeah.
neck down did evolution happen,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And not even so much to that, because then they also deny the physical qualities. They get full evolution denying. The fundamental evolutionary trade-off that created human beings is, us are bipedal, so women and men go upright. The benefit of this is we can use our hands to create tools. So highly dexterous hands, right,
Yes.
by being upright, allows our incredibly large brains to make tools. And this gives us the ability to swim deeper, breathe underwater, fly in the air, and kill any
For
animal
sure.
in
All
the animal
that.
kingdom,
One other thing I want
right?
to add to your theory. Well, it's a part of it. They say that when we left the forest and we started being able to make fires without burning down a whole forest, we started cooking food and storing it. And then the nutrients, that was also what allowed our brain to grow. It had a lot to do with fire and cooking.
Yeah, it is. And let me just, so the fundamental trade-off for human beings is we become bipedal. But this is why a lot of women before modern medicine would die in childbirth, because the risk trade-off here is, well, now that we're bipedal and we're flipping, right? The narrowing of the hips and babies coming through the vaginal canal
For sure.
is but then in order to become smarter, our brains have to get bigger because our smarts are here.
Yeah.
So the bigger the baby's head, the more.
And then the Kardashians were born, and they're like, okay, we can.
So the fundamental evolutionary trade-off for the intelligence of human beings growing in our evolutionary history is how wide a female's hips can be. So in puberty, women's hips get wider to accommodate for giving birth upright to big-brained babies that need to be smart, right? Yeah. So lots of women would die in childbirth. So there's this, human women are on like this, the fundamental edge, right? If their hips get a little bit wider, they aren't able to run. Like they just aren't able to run effectively. And they won't be able to get away from a tiger at all.
Yeah.
Right? This is like, you got to be in the evolution. It's like sometimes you got to run away from something that's going to kill you.
Yeah.
50,000 years ago. Like some things are going to kill you, and you got to move and get away from them. If your hips are too wide, right, you can't. Yeah. You just wobble and fall down.
Yes.
So female hips are just wide enough to keep moving forward, and this is as wide as they can be to give birth to intelligent babies. But there's still a risk here. Right before modern medicine, and that's why a lot of women would die in childbirth.
Yes.
So this is like the fundamental evolutionary trade-off that creates humans.
Yeah.
And all these leftists are like, believe the science. I believe in science. Trans people have this advanced science that says this, and it's like nothing against them, but like this is why men can't compete against women in sports. It's not hormone levels. It's not hormone levels that makes Leah Thomas, able to dominate females.
Yeah.
Men have bigger hearts than women, even if they are the same size.
You know what it is that I hate about it? And just to interject real quick, this show is not called Uninterrupted. Is oh god damn it, dude! I lost it again. Fuck.
There you go.
No, what were you just saying?
I was just saying about men have bigger hearts than women. They could pump blood and get oxygen so faster. This is why it's easier for men to like. Women like sprints.
Fuck, I lost it, dude. Sorry.
Leah Thomas, if swimming, needs to breathe less than the other girls. Than the girls, because his heart is bigger, even the same size. Exactly. A man and a woman, both 6 feet tall. The man has a bigger heart, which means he can pump blood and get oxygen to his muscles more efficiently than the woman. Again, the bone structure, like the density. Male shoulders are designed and broaden. Our shoulders broaden, which means they're much better for punching and fighting at their mate, right? Sure. This is the evolution trade-off, like the angle at which our arms are done, like angular momentum, all that. Like you'll never see a woman ever able to throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball in
exactly. And hey, and I just remembered what I was going to say is that the left is the problem with the left is that they're very selectionary with what they. It's like they're turning science into a religion in a way. Where, well, I guess the same problems that we see with religion is what is beginning to happen in science is in that people are being selective. And I think that causes problems, right? And I think that that's a problem of the left. I do. So I would agree with you on that. Where it's like, they want to believe this. Science is true here. But then over here where it says that, hey, gender is important or gender is real, we just will ignore that a little bit. I don't like that stuff.
Yeah. So I think, what's happening here, which driving me crazy, is they're turning science into religion, but they're calling it science, but the science is being taken out, and what's being called science is their political ideology. So science is being religion. Then there's a mix of some actual science in with left-wing philosophy, and wherever science doesn't meet left-wing philosophy, it's kicked out of the science.
And they think that's good because they think I'm pure and my my empathy is at the highest evolved way. And it'll make this science better, but they don't realize that that's ignorance.
Can I give you the most terrifying example of this in the modern world?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's something called the Cochrane Report, and the Cochrane Report is like the gold standard has been for the medical industry on like what treatments are. So Cochrane Report is like this industry standard meta-analysis of all the data as it pertains to a certain thing. Like, is this new method of heart surgery good or bad? And a lot of doctors will say, well, wait for the Cochrane Report to let us know where this goes. And like 5 years after it comes, like all the data's there. So finally, the Cochrane Report was released earlier this year on masking and COVID. And the Cochrane Report found actually masks don't prevent the spread of COVID on like these masking policies and no effect. The Cochrane Report, which is the industry gold standard, said actually masking had no effect. You look at all the data, like this is the gold standard. We've looked at we did the comprehensive amalgamated meta-analysis through all the data, ran it 4,000 times. This is the industry gold standard. We actually found no scientific merit to
Can I ask
masking
you a clear question? What do you think, if you had to sum it down to, I guess, a short summary, what do you think caused the breaking of society, as you called it temporarily, or what do you and I assume you're making reference to to COVID, sort of, for a period of
COVID is a
time.
big part. These problems predate COVID. Like I just finished the Cochrane story. So the Cochrane said no significant thing. One, the medical industry for years would change on this. All of a sudden, they ignored the Cochrane report. And the leftists got so mad, they bullied the Cochrane report into releasing an apology. So they didn't actually say they're wrong, but they got the Cochrane report
That exists?
to apologize for saying that masking had no effect. And then the media then wrote, oh, the Cochrane report was wrong on the masking. So they've now flipped. They didn't actually flip. They didn't actually say, well, we're changing the data. They just apologized for stating the truth. And then this gave like CTV and CBC and all the establishment media the ability to say, well, no, now you can ignore the Cochrane report because they apologized for giving you the data. Like, that's insane, right? This is insane. We're like, is this the religion of science? Well,
exactly.
That's not science, but this is the religion of science, where this is, okay, we bully scientists into saying things that agree with our political narrative, and any scientific study that agrees with our political narrative becomes dogma writ large, and anything that doesn't is thrown out as heresy. So this is like, it's not science, but this is the religion of science. So what causes
and this is not to say that it doesn't happen on the right as well, because a leftist would argue, and I like to interject these sometimes because they would argue, oh, corporate, entities and money and stuff, they have the same type of negative, not pure influence. But,
okay, so you want to call this right wing? Sure. Okay, I accept this criticism. But I don't think it's I don't think this is
the criticism we're making right now is of the left. But I was just
right. So I would say that these major corporations are much better right now at hijacking leftist ideology to gain institutional leverage.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
So the number one way is this is like, right, all this environmental stuff, ESG, COVID, right? Our environmental is a big one. You get an ESG score, right? Right? Who's benefiting off of all this? It's like BlackRock and Vanguard and all these major corporations, because like the ESG regulating, which is like the North American equivalent of a social credit score for those who are unfamiliar with ESG. Yeah. And we're trying to push this hard in Canada. But who hands out the ESG scores? Well, the government, but who's the government in bed with? It's all these different major corporations. So the major banks have great ESG scores. They can invest in friggin', African warlord genocide. Boom. ESG, great, right? BlackRock, Vanguard, because the inmates are running the asylum here and they're involved in making policy. Well, they have great ESG scores, right? It's small businesses who have to jump through the hoops and actually are subject to these ESG monitoring.
No doubt. And that brings us back to COVID again, though, with how you saw the small businesses suffer so much.
Exactly.
And then grocery stores were just like, fine.
Yeah.
The government, we deem it necessary.
Yeah. So you can say corporations taking over is a right wing thing. That's corporatism. Again, it's I can blame the left, whatever. But I think the more accurate way to say is like the way they are currently infiltrating the major corporations is, when you increase regulations in a government, you have to be realistic. And this is where it's like, got to cut your utopian thinking down and realize you live in the real world. When governments input regulations, who has the ability to circumvent these regulations best, right? It's these major corporations who have access to millions of dollars of lawyers, right? Have access to lobbying, who can get certain provisions put into the laws, right? Remember the SNC-Lavalin scandal where they're like, Trudeau, can I just have a special law to get me out of trouble? Sure, right? Right, but you have major corporations who have the abilities to, one, get into the process of writing the laws, or have special access where they're sort of pre-warned of what the laws could be, or have the ability to hire a bunch of lawyers to get around them. Whereas these costs don't, a small business doesn't have $100,000 of legal fees on retainer per year. Like that's just an insane cost for them.
Yeah.
Right. So the more regulations you have, the easier it is for major corporations to either suffer these costs, increase prices, and because if everyone's taking a hit across the board, right? This is a classic minimum wage thing, right? You move minimum wage up from $15 an hour to $20 an hour. Well, Walmart can hit this cost because, okay, inflation, prices go up, whatever. We can take a bit less of a loss, but we gain long term because every small business that takes the hit, well, a lot of them just go under, right? And then less competition, and then more people come to us. So then we can go to monopolistic prices, and
It's
the
a
way
back and forth, right? And that is what
right.
we want to see, and that is the point of democracy for sure. And hey, but I was going to ask you, in terms of the balance of democracy, let's call it. Um, would you agree that, like, do you think that we should see conservative governments in 80%? Like, we should see, it should not be 50-50 in terms of like this area over here is in terms of land mass, let's call it, of North America, just to make it simple.
Mhm.
You shouldn't
Okay.
see 50-50 liberal conservative. What do you think is the ideal balance?
Well,
I
it
feel like it should be more conservative because
listen. But the conservative priorities in Canada are barely even conservative. And they're too afraid to govern. So,
yeah, right now,
and
yeah.
the other problem is like a lot of the local level, like school boards, institution, like a lot of this have been infiltrated by radical leftists over the years. Institutional capture in academia, now in school boards and education, administration. Like the administrations are just filled with these ideologues. So this is where like the lower level. So you can have the problem is you can have a conservative premier, right? But if the entire institution is trained in gender studies, then what percent of the government is conservative here?
The leader doesn't really matter, is what
Right?
you're saying.
Then the leader, what's the leader going up against? So
Yeah, yeah,
and I don't want to be like, well, we need like all the conservatives to get like one. If you're listening to this and you're a mom of 3 and you're working part time, you're like, well, you know what? I can also be part time school board, whatever. I'm going to get in and sign up people and get it. Great, like do that. I'm fully encouraging that. I think that's needed to sort of fix society long term. It's a lot more like reasonable mothers and fathers who are like, okay, you know what? I actually do kind of have the time to be on a school board, whatever. For okay, I have to do it, but it's not so much like we need 80% conservative. It's like you need more people who are just going to be reasonable and not extreme ideologues. Like I think because if someone's more left leaning, it's Canada, so it's always going to be a bit more left leaning, whatever. But if that left leaning person is like old school, is tolerant of dissenting ideas, when someone says, well, some cultures believe 2 + 2 is 5, and some people go, no, they don't. It's just you're just trying to sound not racist, but that's like a horribly racist thing to say. That some like African tribes think 2 + 2 is 5. No, they don't. Show me an African tribe that has like
yeah.
2 + 2.
You're basically saying that this whole culture of affirming is
Yeah,
not productive.
nonsense. And it's not even affirming. It's like just creating. It's like, oh, there's some indigenous way of knowing math.
Yeah.
It's like, no, the Mesopotamians came to mathematics by their own. The Egyptians came to mathematics. Some white people did math as well. I know. India, found the number or the non-number 0 thousands of years ago. A lot of African cultures as well, like had mathematics. Like the way they would do it though is not through written language, but they had like complex systems of like you could see them like interweaving beads. It's very similar to like Incas and Aztecs of like they did have complex math. They just didn't like write it down on tablets, but they had like sort of we could say ancient abacuses where they could do like essentially the Africans
Programs
like
and stuff. Yeah, I know.
created like these things which you could say kind of created credit in a way, and it's a very smart idea, and they kind of got screwed over because this couldn't transfer to Europe. So this is why they traded in slaves, because they sort of had like a credit economy where you could keep track of things, right? Which works if you have digitized credit en masse for the world, which is what we came to, but doesn't really work if you have credit written down on like a physical piece of paper or with a threaded needle system through an administration, which like, so my thing is like, if you actually look at like how these African tribes came up with their mathematics, like it is clever. Like in human beings, if left alone, will develop societies and find out math, which is 2 + 2 = 4.
Cool.
And they will be black or white or Asian, and all of them can figure 2 + 2 = 4. It is not an African or indigenous way of knowing that 2 + 2 = 5. It doesn't. leave indigenous people alone. They will figure out 2 + 2 = 4, and they'll find a way to get this down. And some cultures did really smart things, and had bead and thread counters and administrative systems that created credit. But this didn't translate to the modern world because it wasn't digitized. And now we have digital credit. So it's not like white people figured out math. Everyone figured it but there's this insane thought that
You know, the thing I heard the other day, speaking of whites, is I heard that, and I know this is in English, which is obviously kind of like a white language, but I heard that the word slave comes from the word Slav, which is I believe Slavic people are white.
Yeah. I mean, everyone used to you go back far enough in your ancestry, you deserve reparations, and you also have to pay reparations for slavery.
That's so
right.
It's so crazy. But this is like, you can literally come up with a numerical example in this case of how the government makes mistakes in this exact example, because what you just said is true. But we gave them several $billions, and where does that money actually go?
Well, I mean, there's also the problem of when you just throw money at communities with no oversight,
they're still going to complain.
Better. I think you just hit on a very important note on the reparations thing. So I've seen CBC things advocating for reparations of slavery, even though when Canada was formed, slavery was illegal. Slavery was abolished pre-Canada.
Exactly.
And my city, Toronto, right? So City of Toronto and the province of Ontario, founded as Upper Canada, founded in 1792. First Lieutenant Governor of Upper Canada is John Graves Simcoe. Capital's in Toronto. First City Hall, it's where the St. Lawrence Market is now, but just there. 1792, the city and the province is established under the thing. Established 1792. In 1793, the first major bill that gets put forward to Parliament is the Act Against Slavery. John Graves Simcoe was an abolitionist. He wanted to abolish slavery. The first ever major legislative attempt to abolish slavery, right, in the world comes out of the founding of Toronto and John Graves Simcoe. And he worked, and by 1804, slavery was basically abolished in Canada, legally in 1804.
It almost feels like we have whites to thank for abolishing slavery legally. Although they partook in it most recently. Although there's still people in South America who have slaves. There's still people in the Middle East who have slaves. I know
Pakistan's a slave economy. Qatar's a slave economy. Saudi Arabia's a slave economy. We have modern slavery.
Yeah. Let me ding off a couple things on my list here before you continue, because I got all these things that we're moving past that I want to make sure I say. To do with what you were saying about Ben, I was saying that I think that mayors should be more like how a king used to be in a community, where they would talk with the people. They would go down to the bar and maybe one night they would have too much to drink and fucking sleep in the bar. I think that is the way a mayor should be, Yeah,
I mean, the mayor would be far more accessible than John Tory.
Exactly.
John Tory sits on a fancy corporate board. If you're the CEO of Rogers, you've got John Tory's number. And, the Galen Weston can call up John Tory anytime he wants. And these people could still call up Ben Bankas, but so can everyone else. If the CEO of Rogers wants to come down to Yuck Yucks and talk to Ben after the show, like everyone else, he can.
Yeah, the entry fee is 6 beers.
Yeah, it's open to everyone. Yeah, this just would even the playing field of access.
Yeah.
To the mayor.
Yeah.
So and also Ben's not going to be really doing much as mayor, so we're not going to be doing he's not going to be doing himself favors. So it's going to be pretty equal across the board. Listen, I would say under a Bankas administration where I am sort of deputy mayor and doing his homework for him, right? While he's off getting drunk and telling jokes. Listen, if you're a citizen of Toronto and you can make a thing here's a bullshit bylaw that we don't need, that just makes everyone's life harder. Can we just get rid of this stupid law from 1865 that makes it illegal for businesses to have you can't sell hammers at the front of a store and they have to be behind the screws because someone complained in the 1970s. Yeah, we get rid of that. It's ridiculous. In all businesses need the building code for washrooms. They need to be building codes are fine, but here's this ridiculous provision where you have to spend $50,000 a year on an inspection for your businesses. Nothing okay, we get rid of that.
We can work and get rid of
these things and just make your lives as business owners absolutely miserable. Your lives as citizens absolutely miserable. Like, okay, here's an intersection where there's 10,000 car crashes a day. Can we add a stop sign? Sure. Like someone, okay. It's not like we're gonna do like nothing. But again, like we're not gonna have these initiatives where like the old one is like build a bridge to the island airport was David Miller's big thing. Like
Hey,
no
I got a
crazy.
question for you that I think is kind of like a comedy bit. Um, who is the biggest adversary of the Jewish person, other than like the Nazi? Is it? Isn't it? Oh, yeah, sorry. Who is it?
I mean, there's a lot.
A group.
I'd say there's three. I mean, the three biggest anti-Semitic groups right now are like neo-Nazis,
Yep.
radical leftists who
Okay.
are social justice, and Islamist terrorists.
Islamist
So
terrorists. Okay, that was what I thought. And so the
yeah.
bit is, and I don't know, and this is just kind of, I thought this, you maybe have thought of this, but it's like, so because you're a devout Jewish person, right?
No, I'm not devout. I'm
You're not.
cultural. Like
You're
I'm
not.
not wearing a kippah right now.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
like
But it's part of your
I believe,
identity, right?
yeah, I'm culturally Jewish. Like I'll give a quick thing. Like
Okay.
if you're born Jewish, you can't. There's no opt-out clause. There's no excommunication.
So you're
Right?
Jewish. Your mom is Jewish, right? So it's like the
My
real
mom is
Jewish.
Jewish, so that makes me
Bingo.
Jewish.
Yeah.
Right? So like I've had a bar mitzvah. My cousin's kid's bar mitzvah is later tomorrow. Is later this week. So he'll have like there's like I don't celebrate Christmas. I do Hanukkah. It's not like I'm anti, but like we do the Jewish holidays to the Christian ones. But like it's inaccurate. I'm not like Ben Shapiro is a devout Jew.
Yep.
Like he won't like if he comes over to your house, like you'd have to order in special kosher food. Like
Gotcha.
you could cook like if I came over and you cooked me a meal, I would not be like, well, these plates aren't kosher and technically like
Yeah.
no, like
Gotcha.
you can cook me a bacon sandwich and I'd be like, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it's not right. So I'm not
I feel
religiously
you. Yeah.
practicing this, but culturally, yeah, I do Hanukkah instead of Christmas. And all of this is fine. So
Okay.
it's
Okay. So now that you've explained yourself, allow me to make an insensitive joke. I
go for
feel like it's like so you have a dot on your forehead that's kind of like where they put their dot, isn't it?
the bindi. No, that's Hindu women.
Fuck. So the joke doesn't work then. Middle
Doesn't
Eastern
work. No,
people
that's
don't
it.
do that.
That's it. Yeah,
And
that
Indian people,
you know.
but I know that I know some India are Indian people anti-Semitic at all or no?
No,
No.
India is very interesting. I have a good relationship with India.
Dang it! Then the joke doesn't work. Then never mind.
No. India's fascinating because India is one of the cultures that doesn't understand
Well, let me tell you,
anti-Semitism.
because like I know a bunch of India people, Indians, East Indians,
Yeah.
whatever you call them these days, and they were all Muslims, and
So India does have a large Muslim. No. If they have a bindi in the middle of their head, the dot, that they're Hindu.
okay,
That's Hindu women who
that's Hindu
certain
women. Okay,
Hindu
gotcha.
women. Yeah. So India's interesting. Again, working this. A lot of Indians like they just don't understand anti-Semitism because it's just not in their culture. Like these anti-Semitic stereotypes, whatever. It's just not in Indian Hindu culture. So they just don't understand they just don't understand what the Nazis are talking about.
I like people who are upset about anti-Semitism because it's finally some white people who are upset about people attacking white people. It's like more whites need to be upset about the racism towards them, And I feel like the
Yeah.
Jewish people are the only ones who are like, stop this shit. Like, but
Yeah,
let me ask you though: do you consider, and to do with the whole Kanye thing too, like,
Yeah.
do you consider Jewish a different race?
Like this is one of the things where it's like okay, people who generally speaking, people who hate white people, those anti-white people, tend to count Jews as white people.
Yeah.
People who love white people don't count Jews as white people. So this is not a winning conversation. And Jews themselves
I have never
are different.
put so eloquently. That's so funny. Sorry,
Yeah.
please continue.
Okay. So Jews themselves have different races. So most of Israel, right? People like Israel's a European settler colonialist, blah, 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 blah. Well, the majority of Israelis are not of European descent. Most of them come from the Middle Eastern Jews. Over half of Israeli population has no connection to Europe whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
These are, people know Ashkenazi Sephardic Jews. Like I'm Ashkenazi descent. That's like the Eastern European. That's the one you tend to hear most about in the Sephardic. But there's also Mizrahi Jews, which is like
yeah.
Yeah, Mizrahi is probably the ones your listeners haven't heard this phrase before, but these are like Jews of Middle Eastern descent, right? So Jews from Morocco, Jews from Yemen, Jews from Egypt. Like
Rocky.
when Israel was founded, over
Who's Michael Mizrachi? Oh, yeah. No, I've heard. No, I'm just thinking of a poker player that I
okay,
know whose last name is Mizrachi.
yeah. I mean, like, so when Israel was after the independence war, when Israel was founded, 850,000 Jews were made refugees in the Middle East after being kicked out of their homes and the Farhoods and the pogroms there, right? All of those, went to Israel. So you had like in its founding, right, nearly a million non-white Jews just off after the independence war to make up that population. So the global Jewish population is like 14 million, right? Half of that is what you would call white European descent, right? Has roots in Europe. Half of that has no connection whatever to Europe. So like there's half the Jewish population you just can't even call white because they have no European
So it's
connection. They're
50-50.
Middle
So you're
Eastern.
saying that it's largely 50-50.
It's pretty much 50-50 globally, right? People tend to focus more on Jews in North America who have European descent, but also like
That's why everybody debates whether Jesus was white or dark.
yeah,
Like,
I
and then
mean,
they
but
all have you heard of that painting of that's supposed to be of Jesus? Have you ever heard of that painting? It's
yeah,
the most
the thing,
expensive painting ever painted. I forget what it's called though. Do
but
you
here's the thing though with like not like purely sub-Saharan African black racialism. Um,
wait? Say that
it's
again. Can you say that again?
okay, so here's the thing with like sort of race on a like let's say evolutionary timeline. It only takes a few generations to take someone who's not like purely black sub-Saharan African, like pure like Wesley Snipes level of shade. But if you have someone of Middle Eastern descent, right, and within a few generations you have a little bit of intermarriage, someone who was like 50 generations from Egypt can look super white with like little blonde hair and
Oh,
blue eyes
okay.
after fusion. So it's like they'd be like, "Oh, I'm not white. I'm Middle Eastern," but it's like you look pretty white. So like this is where the
Okay.
racial
So you're
distinction.
kind of saying that like whites are kind of like more like Middle Easterns than they are like Asians. We should be called Caucasians, not Caucasians.
Yeah, or like what I was
Because
saying though.
Asians and blacks, that when you mix a black or an Asian with a white, you can tell for sure. But when you mix, yeah, sorry.
I'm just saying, you moved to Egypt. You and your wife moved to Egypt. Your grandkids, your great grandkids, like they're gonna look just like pretty much like they're not gonna look like these Viking Nordics like
Yeah.
standing out among it. Like you're gonna like your kids are all gonna kind of look Egyptian and like you have this thing where like it makes sense and now the world's more interconnected, so races are mixing. But you take out modern travel, like you go somewhere where there's a lot of sun, people are going to get darker over time because evolutionary adaptation, right? You're exposed to more sun.
Yeah.
The evolution trade-off in human beings is the more sun you're exposed to, you want darker skin because you want the better protection from the sun's rays,
Yeah.
and you decrease your risk of skin cancer because you're getting enough vitamin D. The
Yes.
further north you live, the more darkness you have to endure, the lighter skin you want because the evolution trade-off is when there is vitamin D available, you want to be able to absorb as much of it, and you
Yeah.
take the greater
What's
risk
the
of
evolutionary
skin
advantage to a
cancer.
small penis?
Um, the actual evolutionary advantage though is to larger penises in that can make so the humans comparatively have gigantic penises in the
Yeah,
animal
I
kingdom.
know.
Every guy should feel compared to the other great apes, you're killing it.
We're
Like
killing the
compared to a
monkeys.
gorilla,
We're killing
uh-huh,
all the apes.
you're killing it. Like they're like sperm whales have bigger ones, but like
Yeah.
top 10 in the animal kingdom. So
They should have
that
called us penises instead of humans. That's basically all
yeah,
we are.
the evolutionary adaptation to the larger penises is in societies like let's say bonobo societies where you know women would have sex with lots of guys at a time. The larger penis provides a function to create like sort of let's say suction that would remove the sperm from the other males, and push it out and put your seed into the female. So the larger penises work as a means to
Makes
get
sense.
other men's.
So that would be a reproductive advantage of a big penis. So let's say that you were in a fight to the death against a man. Do you think that your penis hiding away would be a huge advantage because he can't grab that and rip it off? then no reproduction whatsoever. If it's your penis is grabbable, then you're fucked.
Maybe that's the smaller. Listen, when Ben Bankas is mayor, everyone will have huge penises. Everyone will have the penis they want. Everyone gets to choose their own penis size. Everyone can choose, and you get the penis you want, and it's going to be government funded.
Awesome.
Government funded. You get men, women. Where do you want a penis? Do you want it in between your legs? Do you want it on your legs? You get a penis
on my
where
shoulder.
you want. Hey, it's your right.
Shoulder
it's your
stripes.
right. It's your right as a Canadian to identify how you want and get
Yep.
a penis exactly where you want, when you want. How many penises do you want? How big do you want them? Where do you want them? You get them.
You get them all. Okay, and with that, I will say that we're going to call this an episode of Canadian Talk with Daniel Bordman. We want to thank you all very much for tuning in. So again, if you want to find them on social media, it is Daniel Bordman, and he's mostly active on Facebook, correct?
Facebook. I do the National Telegraph more on Facebook. So the National Telegraph
and
is
the shows
more
are
active
the
page.
National Telegraph.
On Facebook. That's like the publication I write for. And yes, I have my own Facebook page. I'm most active probably under my name now on Twitter. I mean, you could find me Daniel Bordman, DanielBordman.
Yep.
Type that in, you'll find me. I tend to do it. If it's my name and face, that's me.
He spells board like how Americans spell color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're conservative on the letters, saving you time.
Conservative on the letters.
I'm a man of the people. I took the potential other A out. We want a man to the people. Ben Bankas, you can find him under his name, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I write for the National Telegraph. Again, we Facebook, Twitter, wherever you get your news. And it's I believe
you spread the truth
under your name.
Yep. Okay, well, thanks a lot, man. And that will be episode 59 of Canadian Talk. Out. See you guys later.
Canadian Talk.
Thanks for listening, and any questions or concerns for the show, as well as voice recordings and voice messages that you'd like us to listen to, or advertisement inquiries, please forward those along to CanadianTalkWithStephan@gmail.com. Thanks. We also have a website, Stephanjackson.ca, where you can find a back catalog of all our episodes, and we're also on YouTube, where you can find the video versions.